Doctor in the TARDIS. Next stop everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, still stuck in the basement of solitude, hiding out from the coronavirus. One of these days, one of these years, hopefully I'll get back in the TARDIS once again, ready to talk some classic Doctor Who. And, of course, I'm joined once again by my wonderful partner in time and a special guest whom we're going to introduce just in uno momento, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am great, Charles. I am out of the Jackson solitary confinement. I went back to my office today. Linda and Chris are still here. He's still working from home. And so far, things are going well. And I'm looking forward to talking with you and our special guest, though someone, and they will remain nameless, sent an email and said that they are going to start betting the over and under of when I overtalk you when you're trying to make a point. So I told them I will try to do better. They said it with a lot of, they were definitely tongue in cheek and telling how much they can tell our banter has a lot of fun. So
I'm kind of curious about who sent that now.
Yes.
I know it wasn't me.
No, it wasn't.
So I'm off the hook at least. All right. So everybody, just joining Jesse and I this week, you heard him, just a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the War Machines. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere. DJ Nik from Happiness and Darkness, the superhero movie podcast, and of course the Whiskey and Cigarette Show. Welcome back, sir, to Next Stop Everywhere. How you doing,
Hey,
Nick?
guys. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me back. It's just always a pleasure to be with you guys. It's things are slowly but surely evolving over here in Italy as well. As we talked a little bit off air, this Friday I'll finally be able to go to the barbers, and I'll actually finally be able to get to see my friends this Friday night. So it's going to be an interesting experiment to see how things have changed since we've been on lockdown.
Are you going to be one of those people that kind of like, you step out of your front door and you're going to rub your eyes and you're going to go blink, what is this bright light in the sky? That what is strange ball of fire in sky? And as you go back out into the world, or have you been someone that's kind of like occasionally gone outside and then hid right back inside?
Well, you know what? I've had the chance to go out quite a bit because of the fact of but obviously just for shopping reasons mainly. So getting groceries and what have you. So, I was able to enjoy some of this beautiful weather that we're having over here. It's incredibly hot already, but it's it's wonderful weather, and so that's why I'm super happy to be getting out and like I said, finally seeing some friendly faces.
Nice. And unfortunately, in the meantime, you're stuck here with Jesse and me. So,
such is life.
Such is life. Such is life. Sorry about your luck, sir. But as for me, I've got, my wife Lori was kind enough to hook me up with some new garb for wearing outside because, hey, if you've, what's a Doctor Who fan to do? But now that I've got my special new Doctor Who mask that I'm wearing.
Oh, how nice!
If Jesse Nik can see that on the computer.
Take a photo and tweet it.
Well,
Please
I actually did post a photo of the mask on our Next Stop Everywhere Instagram page and shared that on Facebook, of course. So if you want to check it out, it's very cool Doctor Who themed mask, homemade mask. So if you want to check that out, complete surprise. I had no idea my wife Lori was doing that, so I want to give her some props here today because she's looking out for a man. So hey, I got to be very appreciative of that, right? So so cheers to my wife Lori for the wonderful surprise gift. Because now I can rock this to the at my comic book store as I go get comics next week. So Jesse's raising his hand. He's got something he wants to share with the class. So Jesse, please share.
Yes, I wanted to just take us off topic just one moment.
Just one moment.
But since you are a frequent guest on DJ Nik's wonderful podcast.
Yeah,
and Nick, you are a passionate comic book movie fan. I want both y'all's take, and then we will jump back into Doctor Who. The news about Zack Snyder spending a small fortune to remix his version of Justice League. Charles.
You're going to make me go through that whole Snyder cut nonsense? All right, so yeah, $20 million. Warner Brothers is kicking in for this, and so what they're going to do is Zack Snyder is going to be completing, or at least some reasonable form, his version of Justice League that was taken away from him and given to Joss Whedon to lighten up seriously and to make it a little bit more palatable to the masses. So that apparently is going to be coming out on HBO Max in 2021, which was announced today. And for me, I could take it or leave it. After the past 3 years of internet trolls hashtagging release the Snyder Cut, I could care less at this point. I will check it out when it comes on HBO Max because, hey, I'm already paying for HBO Max. But if it didn't happen, I was not going to lose any sleep over it personally. I don't know about you. Right. How about you, Nick?
Well, I mean, I kind of feel the same way you do, Charles. I mean, because I will watch it, of course, but it's gotten on my nerves so much, like you were saying, the trolling and the on and on and on that's been going on about it. I thought to myself, just leave it, let it be. We got what we got, and I mean, I'm almost in two minds, and I thought to myself when the news broke, I thought to myself, should I be reviewing this next year when it comes out on Happiness and Darkness, or just leave it? Because I don't even know if I'll find people who want to talk about it.
Right.
So already I remember, when you were part of the panel, when we discussed it for the first time.
Right.
Let's say, people, of course it was great having everybody on discussing it, but let's say that they don't have the best of time talking about this movie. So yeah. I don't know whether I want to go through it all over again.
Yeah, unless you wanted to have like Zan and me on to make fun of it, like Mystery Science Theater 3000 style.
Yeah, I think that's the best idea because, like I said, I mean...
we will do that.
I'm game for that, I'm game for it. I mean, to answer Jesse's question, I do think it was something that we didn't really need. I hate to say that, and I mean, I hate to sound really horrible when I say that. I mean, because I love, of course, superhero movies are a huge part of my life, and
right.
But at the same time, it's like, we could move on from this. Warner, you can move on from this. You can get better. You don't have to go back to this kind of stuff. Just learn from your mistakes and move forward.
Yeah. I was just going to say, really quickly, I was just going to say, I feel a little frustrated with Warner Brothers because now all those people, all those internet trolls are going to feel emboldened anytime there's something they don't like.
That's right.
To launch an internet campaign. And now that Warner Brothers has said, okay, guess what? You feel free because we totally caved on this one. So now they're going to feel emboldened, and that kind of makes me sad. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jesse. Sorry about that.
No, I did not have passionate feelings one way or another. I did not hate Justice League. I think there is a better use of $20 million, and I'm not talking about feeding the hungry, I'm just saying, give J. Michael Straczynski $20 million and say, do a 2-hour or 4-hour mini series set in the Babylon 5 universe. I realize that Warner Brothers doesn't own Firefly, but hey, Joss Whedon, here's $20 million. Go give us another story in the Firefly universe.
Yeah.
Timeless. The people. I mean, there are series that there are new stories to tell. I do not have HBO Max. I don't know if this will be enough to make me get it. I'm kind of. I am a little bit of.
Do you have HBO?
I have HBO.
Then you have HBO Max.
Okay, automatically
goes through your cable provider. So what you'll do is you'll get the app, and then you'll log in through your cable provider.
Okay. Yeah, I pay for I didn't know if you're going to have to pay for a separate.
Nope, no, you don't. Not if you have HBO already.
Okay, because I kind of have grumpiness already about Hulu. I'm having to pay Hulu. I'm having to do BritBox. I'm having to do Amazon Prime. I'm having to do Stars because my cable system doesn't cover Stars anymore. So I've got the Stars app. So CBS, Direct All Access. So I'm kind of like, damn it. Do I really need another?
Eventually you're going to phase out cable. And so all that money that would go to the cable company, you just will now spend on streaming services. All right. Yeah. So,
but anyway, on to Doctor Who. Thank you for that. Letting me have a chance to.
No problem. So after we've totally derailed the discussion, back to Doctor Who, everybody, because hey, this is Next Stop Everywhere, not the Phantom Zone or Happiness and Darkness. So here on episode 185, we are going to talk the Ambassadors of Death, which I love that title. Just saying. And so here on May 20th, 2020, which I think is very fitting because this is the 24th anniversary of Jon Pertwee's death in 1996.
Did not know that.
So in a weird coinky-dink of the universe, we get to talk a Jon Pertwee story. So I think that's pretty cool that we can of pay our respects and honor to the late Jon Pertwee as we talk the Ambassadors of Death. And guys, I know Nick was very excited when I brought up the subject of him joining us for this discussion. Jesse, let's start with you first, and before we get into our details here, our overview. What was your general thoughts about this one as you watched it?
I really liked this episode. I liked this episode a lot more than what we had over the past 2 weeks, and I enjoyed both of those episodes. I will have the standard complaint that is just the nature of the business of this was, didn't need to be 7 chapters, and there's a little bit of, stuff you could have cut. I think a good edit would have done, but I think this was a strong story. I think it had an interesting premise, and it's always interesting to see this doctor and working with the Brigadier since we just saw the Colonel. Now that so it's just I really had a good time on this. Enjoyed it a lot, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
That's awesome. So Nick. Now that we've played the Jesse Jackson drinking game about pacing, what is?
I know you appear, sir.
What were your thoughts about this one? I know you've seen it during your great long Doctor Who marathon. So what was it? What did you make of the rewatch?
Well, I mean, whenever we get Jon Pertwee, it's always a particular joy for me because, we looked at classic. When it comes to classic Doctors, he was kind of our first man of action Doctor, right. So kind of more Bondian. So I love that. I love the Venusian Aikido that we got later on. And also, funnily enough, when it came to this particular story, he actually dresses more soberly, if such a thing is possible with this Doctor.
Right.
As usually we see him attired in more garish attire when in future serials. He's very much kind of a dandy Doctor, and I love him
more
for that.
frillier sleeves and collars and whatnot.
And we did see the frilly sleeves, but you did not see as many of the opera cape,
right?
And it was good.
Yeah,
and the colors as well. But also, Jon Pertwee was a big part of also my childhood because he voiced one of my favorite cartoon characters growing up, which was Spotty from the cartoon series Super Ted, who I don't know if you guys were familiar with.
I'm a little bit familiar. I know he did Warzel Gummidge in the UK, but I was not aware that he did Super Ted.
And so I love that. Every time I get to hear his voice, it's just wonderful. And, when it comes to the actual serial, there's a first impression, both the first time I saw it and when I rewatched it now, I thought it was an odd but an interesting one. As I actually sat through this in one sitting, as I had in the past, and this is almost 3 hours long if you just watch it all the way through.
Yeah.
Of course, there'll be a lot of this to discuss. I did have a few problems with this serial when it comes to Mrs. Shaw's wardrobe and Dudley Simpson's incidental music, which did bother me a little bit, but I'll get to that later on, so I'm sure we have tons to discuss. But all in all, I really, really enjoyed this serial.
Okay. Well, I, for one, prefer Liz Shaw's Go-Go Boots, but that's just me. So, because I kind of dig that. All right. So as for me, it's been a while since I've watched this one. When I first watched it, I only got to see it on PBS in black and white. But recently, when they had the DVD release, they ended up they had the a little bit of trivia here. They had the first episode was in color. They had that available, but for the remaining episodes 2 through 7. They basically did the whole recolorization process, and as a result, I think the video at times looks a little bit weird and poor because of that that it's. I don't think it's like a full process of recolorization. I think it's more of like a kind of a half effort. And so as a result, sometimes like you can kind of see a little bit of black and white creeping in at the top and the bottom of the screen at times, depending on what's going on. But I was really glad to get it in color. And, I just kind of dig the overall vibe. You kind of get a little bit of the James Bondish feel to Pertwee's Doctor in this one. I love the idea of like, hey, you've got 3 creepy aliens in astronaut suits walking around and killing people with their touch. And I love the whole look. I love the way they were shot as they kind of walk in as a trinity toward the camera. And it just Liz gets a lot. Liz actually gets an action sequence in this one, which I definitely want to talk about. And I think it's a really nice little early entry to Jon Pertwee's era. All right. So to give a little bit of an overview before we get into our main things, this episode, the story, was written by David Whitaker, who notably wrote The Crusade, The Power of the Daleks, Patrick Troughton's first story, The Evil of the Daleks, The Enemy of the World, which, hey, DJ Nik and I talked about here on Next Stop Everywhere, and The Wheel in Space. But interestingly, it was rewritten by Terrence Dicks, Trevor Ray, and Malcolm the Incredible Hulk, because apparently David Whitaker, this story was apparently originally written for Patrick Troughton's era, but then when Patrick Troughton, Fraser Hines, and Wendy Padbury left the show, the original plans that were the story was being set in the future and it didn't have unit, and so when the story, obviously the Jon Pertwee era started, they needed stories for it. And as a result, when this story was adapted, apparently David Whitaker had a lot of problems writing for the Pertwee era. He came up with a few attempts. They didn't work out. So apparently Trevor Ray, Terrence Dicks, and Malcolm Hulk ended up rewriting the story and adapting it for Jon Pertwee's era. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And the story was directed by Michael Ferguson, and it was the third serial from season 7 in 1970. So happy 50th anniversary, almost, The Ambassadors of Death. And, of course, starring Jon Pertwee as the third Doctor, Caroline John as Liz Shaw. And, of course, with guest appearances by Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier, John Levine as Sergeant John Benton, John Abineri has a turn here as the big bad of the story, General Charles, no relation Carrington. He's notable because he played the character Van Lightens in Fury from the Deep, and he played Richard Railton in Death to the Daleks, Ranquin in The Power of Kroll from the Tom Baker era, and he was in a little movie you sort of may have heard of called The Godfather Part 3, which I thought was kind of interesting. Ronald Allen played Ralph Cornish, and previously he played a character named Rago in a Patrick Troughton story, The Dominators. And playing the reporter, John Wakefield, in the story is Michael Wisher, who was in several Doctor Who stories, most notably as Davros in Genesis of the Daleks, that Tom Baker classic. So we essentially have Davros in this one. We have Rex Farrell, he also played Rex Farrell in Terror of the Autons, Kalik in Carnival of Monsters, Magric in Revenge of the Cybermen, and Morelli in Planet of Evil from Tom Baker's era. And also, most notably in this story, we have an actor by the name of Jeffrey Beavers, who plays Private Johnson, the radio operator for UNIT. That name sounds a little familiar. Well, hey, he was played the second master in The Keeper of Traken, and of course many Big Finish audios as he's reprised the master for those. And so essentially we have Davros and the master in the story, which is kind of cool. And Jeffrey Beavers also was in the 2010 movie version of Clash of the Titans and The Tudors, and also most notably, hey, he was the husband of Caroline John, who played Liz Shaw, until her death in June of 2012, when sadly she passed away. So thankfully Jeffrey Beaver's still with us, I believe, so which is great because I love hearing him on Big Finish, but I think that's a pretty interesting little bit of trivia. So anybody have anything else they'd like to add before we get into our topics?
No, I well said as always, Charles, and I'm looking forward to talking about getting into the meat of the
discussion
story.
All right. So with that in mind, topic number 1, space control to Dr. John. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. Sorry, I couldn't resist a little David Bowie riff there from Space Oddity. Because, hey, let's talk about the Doctor and Liz, the third Doctor and Liz, as the Doctor goes into space and Liz finally gets an action sequence of her very own, only to get captured and forced to hang out in this bunker for most of the story. So I want to get everybody's thoughts. Nick, since you're our wonderful special guest companion this time, let's start with you. What was your thoughts about the third Doctor and Liz in this story?
Well, when it comes to Jon Pertwee, as I mentioned before, I just love that he is this man of action. I suppose it also maybe reflected the times a little bit, as Bond and spy shows were pretty popular during the 70s. Though more than his Venusian Aikido, we get to see more of the Doctor's mental prowess and how he's pretty much quite a few steps ahead of everybody else. And I always also found the concept of the earthbound Doctor was an interesting concept, as in this case, it's not Muhammad that goes to the mountain, it's the mountain that comes to Muhammad, as they say. But we learned that in this case that the Doctor is an excellent diplomat, which will become a theme in quite a few series. And of course, we notice he is very short-tempered with those whom he may find stupid or just seem slow compared to him. And also, I have to admit, though I'm not a car guy, I love to see him drive Bessie whenever we get the opportunity. As he has it kind of tricked out with all the gadgets and the gizmos, and so I kind of got a 60s Batman vibe from that, because the Batmobile and the gadgets and stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool. Also, as I did mention, we did get his genius when it comes to developing a way to talk to the alien ambassadors, and he probably knows way more than the folks at the British Space Program do at this point. So I thought that was kind of fun. And when it comes to Liz Shaw, well, Caroline John is always a pleasure to watch. And I think it was an excellent touch that rather than just give the Doctor a pretty face or a person to protect, or in Liz's words, someone to pass him test tubes and tell him how brilliant he is, we actually learned that, surprise, surprise, women can be attractive and intelligent. You know, the two.
What a concept, right?
Exactly. The two are not mutually exclusive, folks. And I think it's wonderful that we had a smart woman and one that can really and truly be a companion, you know, aid him during his sojourn and on our little green planet. And my only gripe is that if she is a scientist, you'd think she'd dress more sensibly rather than have her going out in short skirts. I mean, I know it was the style at the time, but I find it was a bit of an attempt to sexualize her. But we do know this is not what the show is about, and that will be also, however, a problem with future female companions. But I must say, all in all, I have a very soft spot for Liz Shaw, not to mention she's the first companion in living color, which is very cool.
Right, exactly. And Jesse, how about you? What were your thoughts about these two characters?
When I watched this episode, and actually any of those with the third Doctor, I go back to when it was the 50th anniversary, and for several weeks in a row, BBC America did a Stephen Moffat talking about each of the Doctors. Yeah. And they had other things, and they were really special specials, pardon the pun.
Like the third Doctor Revisited or something like that.
Yeah, and he talked about, and I know this is obvious, but it's worth saying, he'd already talked about how much Patrick Troughton had to carry, right, to be the second Doctor. But this guy, it's a brand new show. It's set in Earth. It's in color. He's working with UNIT. He is, as we talked about, a doctor of a man of action. And I'm always just impressed that they were able to do that major of a change, yet it feels like Doctor Who. So I really like this.
Especially being set earthbound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got a way to have the Doctor get into space. Though I wonder if the Gallifreyan Time Lords are unhappy. Like if they had found out that he had gone in this primitive capsule, would they have been like, okay, you broke curfew, bad Doctor.
The way I kind of see that is that, it's essentially like if you're grounded, but yet you're still able to like stay in your front yard.
Okay,
that
makes sense.
That like, okay, technically it's the house because you're still on the property. You didn't go outside the property. But it's kind of pushing those boundaries just a little bit. But I can't see them having a problem with that.
We get the arrogance of the Doctor, talking about how much time he's had in space, kind of having little patience with people like, that's what I'm trying to do. Okay. Like back off. He's very likable, even though he can be pretty short-tempered. He suffers fools. He suffers no fools.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like this. I liked the idea of, and he had a very doctorish of not necessarily telling you everything he knows. And then when you ask about something, he's like, well, of course, like, duh. Why haven't you figured out that they haven't come to Earth? They're still up in space. Like, catch up, man. It's like, wait a minute, we don't know anything. So I like that. I had not seen, I guess Liz was the very first companion from Spearhead Space.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Had we seen her before?
Yeah, we talked about it with Spearhead before. And then John Takis and I talked, or was it, maybe it was Lee Leonard. It might have been Lee Leonard that we talked Inferno.
I think you're just going to have to, it's the time of the same way you have to forgive the pacing. You just have to understand that, you're going to have, the dress may not be where you want, but I think that you could make the case that half the TV shows that we're on currently, when there is a female police officer or detective, that she's not wearing practical clothes, right? Like often one of the things when friend of the show, Karen Lindsay, and I were doing Storming the Castle, where we talked about Castle, and we would say, Beckett is not wearing what a true police detective would wear because she's a TV star, and TV stars dress a certain way, regardless of the story that we're telling. I really liked both of them. I thought there's the interaction between them was good. I agree with you guys. She had her own little storyline. She was active. When she was stuck in the lab, she was trying to manipulate to get out, to, kind of play the angles. Just really, really good stuff.
Yeah, she wasn't just sitting in that bunker whimpering or crying or something like maybe Victoria would do, since we talked about Web of Fear last week. But, yeah, I mean, I like Liz a lot. I think I like the fact that, and it kind of show, I appreciated her character that, hey, maybe, she's intelligent, but she also is secure and confident. She knows she looks good. She's very fashionable. Maybe she's just one of those, she's a scientist that also has a sense of style. And, if the doctor can have a sense of style, I don't know why Liz can't. Although I think that big floppy hat was a little bit of a fashion faux pas, even for 1970. But again, I'm cool with the go-go boots. So
no, I got no problem with the hat. I make a note. She is rocking the hat.
You like the big floppy hat?
I'm voting yes. I think that's very of the times. And it was groovy, baby. It was groovy.
Yeah, the hat was cool. But
I think it was amazing that even when she gets pushed off into that little stream, over the railing into that stream, she still manages to hang on to her hat. And even when during the high-speed chase, that hat stayed right on her head. I'm guessing maybe she had it clipped down to her hair, but so it wouldn't blow off. But especially figuring, well, hey, it's a big floppy hat. It's probably going to catch the wind. But I had to imagine that probably hurt a little bit if it was clipped to her hair. So
John Wayne didn't lose his cowboy hat. So, Tom Baker, right, got his floppy hat.
Exactly.
And neither did Chuck Norris.
Yes.
Indiana Jones, guys. Indiana Jones. Well, he lost his hat, but he always recovered it. So
I had to go to Chuck Norris. I'm sorry.
Exactly. All right. So, but yeah, I think Liz is cool, and I really wish we'd got more stories with her, at least another season. But at least we have these 4. And as for the Doctor, obviously the story being set in 1970, coming right off of hey, the moon landing the year before. So essentially, space was a very popular topic back then. Everything, it captured the world's imagination. So it made, absolutely no surprise that Doctor Who would try to capture some of that and try to appeal to that interest in space by having its own kind of little space launch here. And so I'm sure the Doctor was very happy to get up in that capsule. Just for the sheer notion that, hey, I can get off the Earth for even just a little bit. Maybe it's not traveling all the way across time and space, but at least I'm in orbit or, just out of orbit. And so I'm sure he was looking for just about any opportunities. So he's like, sure, yeah, give me all your battery tests, whatever you got to do. I'm going to do this thing. And even though you had Cornish, saying, well, all those G forces might, could hurt you. No problem. No.
I can take more G forces than you people can. Yes.
You mere humans. But to bring up, I think Nick's point, and also Jesse's a little bit, we're talking about the Third Doctor being kind of brusque with people and not suffering fools gladly. I don't know, if, especially I'm sure any new Who fans watching this, especially from the Capaldi era, might see see where Peter Capaldi kind of borrowed a little bit from Jon Pertwee in that regard for his Doctor, at least at first, until his Doctor kind of warmed up a bit when they kind of figured out, his 12th Doctor. But
Well
but
said.
I
Good point.
kind of saw a little bit of, what Capaldi did in his era, even though obviously Jon Pertwee did it first. So I think, and especially with the 12th Doctor's sense of Pertwee-esque style, kind of looking like a magician a little bit at times, that he was more than happy to pay homage to one of his favorite Doctors, I'm guessing. Just kind of like Matt Smith did with Patrick Troughton's Doctor.
So I think that's one of the joys of going back and looking at Classic Who, is to play that parlor game of, in the modern era, are there threads? You could make the argument that, did David Tennant pull part of this? Did, Capaldi or Jodie, even Eccleston, that you can see shades of the previous Doctors in their modern performances. And I think that's one of the joys of, not only do you get to see, like in this case, a really good story,
right,
but you also can see the building blocks of a modern Doctor.
Yeah. So Jesse, just out of curiosity, before we get into other things, did you watch this all at once, or did you break it up into chunks?
So I watched I watched 6 in a row,
mm-hmm.
ran out of time, and then had to do the 7th one like the next day or 2 days later.
Okay.
So overall, mostly all in a row.
Yeah.
This, it may or may not have been on my laptop while I was still working from home. Maybe I will. Theoretically, yes. And it flowed really well. I have some specific things to talk about.
Sure.
That I like, the shootout in the very first episode. Okay, we didn't need that. We could have made it a lot shorter. The stealing the capsule in episode 2. I mean, you could pick things where, like, okay, here's where you could have cut a little bit. But they were fun, and it was good to see. So
yeah, I broke it up into like 2 episodes, then 3 episodes, and then 2 episodes.
Nice.
So because I think it kind of works a little better broken up. You're not, because especially if you go through like 4 episodes at once, you start to feel a little logy at times, depending. So it keeps the latter episodes from feeling more like a chore to get through, I think, because you do kind of break things up. But that's just me. So everybody's style runs differently. I was just kind of curious about that.
No, I think that's a really good point, and I think to its credit, I've had to do that in the past.
Right.
In this case, I didn't feel like, oh, let me just get through this. I was enjoying it enough. Like, okay, good. I want to see the next chapter.
All right, cool. Well, that's good.
Chapter.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad it held your interest. That's excellent. So we got to see the Doctor go into space, and then we got to he ends up getting captured and kind of hanging out with Liz until he helps Liz. He and Liz kind of build this translation device to help them talk to the ambassadors, and basically that's where you kind of get a little bit of a better understanding that, hey, these ambassadors are essentially, they're being held against their will, they're being forced to do something, and of course, that the Doctor, because of this and because of his trip meeting the race that the ambassadors come from, that in space, where he tries to, when he tried to go rescue the original astronauts, that it kind of helps him piece together this whole thing so that he can go back to Earth and kind of be their champion a little bit. And I really like that, personally. All right. Anything else about the third Doctor and Liz from anybody?
No.
All right. So topic number 2, I think the General's a bit overwrought. And in this segment, I want to talk about Ralph Cornish the head at Space Control, and also, of course, the Brigadier, who's now Brigadier, no longer a colonel, and our boys in unit who pretty much get their ass kicked in this story quite a bit. And I want to get your thoughts. So, Jesse, let's start with you first. What's your thoughts on the Brigadier and unit and Ralph Cornish while we're at it?
It was good to see unit since we had just seen the Colonel.
Yes.
Seeing him in his full glory, his confidence about what's going on. I really liked how he was interacting with the space police and all that, just all the different units, pardon the pun, the different groups of military that we're involved with. I liked it a lot. There's that, the idea of them protecting this unit, the capsule and everything. This was great. This was good to see. It made sense they were involved. Often we'll go, hey, where's unit? Why wasn't unit involved? Because this was set during that era, he was involved. I liked back and forth and the interaction. It was good to see. Okay.
And Nick, how about you? What are your thoughts about the Brig and the unit and anything about space control head Ralph Cornish?
Okay, well, first off, to discuss when it comes to Ralph Cornish, this was a rather interesting one, as I have to admit, here we're dealing with the head of the British space program.
Right.
However, he does seem rather inept when it comes to his leadership skills. He tends to be often told what to do rather than know exactly what he's doing. And I'm like, how in the world did you get your job and you have no clue? It was odd, though, that as soon as I saw Ronald Allen, the first time I immediately thought soap opera actor. And no surprise, he's acted in quite a few soap operas for a large part of his professional life. But aside from his ineptitude, he was maybe one of the more uninteresting characters, as aside from being yelled at by various characters and at times seeming rather clueless, I suppose we have to have someone for the Doctor to explain things to and explain to him what is actually going on. So maybe he fulfilled that role. When it comes to Brigadier, well, I have gone on record many times saying how much I love Nicholas Courtney. He's kind of like an added uncle to me. I mean, because he's just so charismatic whenever he's on screen. I think his relationship with the Doctor is one of the most memorable. Not to mention, it's one of the most long-lasting when it comes to Classic Who. And I was so glad, we talked about New Who a little bit, that we got that nod that it carries on through Kate Lethbridge Stewart. So every time that the Doctor and the Brigadier are in the same room, to me, it's always a joy. Not to mention, in this serial, we actually get to see him also as the man of action in the shootout at the warehouse, which I don't know about you guys, but I kind of got a Dirty Harry vibe with the way the camera was moving and such. It kind of gave me that vibe. I don't know why. Maybe because probably I'd watched Dirty Harry recently. But he and the Doctor do clash at times, and you can tell there's a mutual respect there. And also trust. And I feel that in this particular era of the show, the Brigadier was almost a representation of the viewer, as it's through him that the audience of the 70s got to know more about the Doctor, and it was almost an added value to the companions. Not to mention, as the show progressed, I became immensely fond of the trio that we would get, so the Brigadier, Sergeant Benton, and Captain Yates, whom we would get later in the series. And I feel that somewhat in New Who, this relationship is lacking, which is a shame. Call me sentimental, but that's the way I feel. That's how much I love New Who, Classic Who. Right. But I guess that, aside from that, I did enjoy what we got, when it came to Alistair. And you touched up on this earlier, Charles. And yes, Unit also seems rather inept for being a special task force.
This one particularly, yes.
Especially in the shootout. And I was actually wondering, are they and the Stormtroopers possibly related? Because that's how bad they are.
Oh, nicely
zing,
said.
Zing. Yeah, that's they didn't. Unit. I'm sorry. I don't mean to stump all over you, Nick. There, but
no, of course.
Yeah, that shootout. I found it pretty ridiculous because here's Unit. they're trained soldiers, right? They've been training with the military, and presumably, now I know that what is his name? Regan was apparently a former military, but there was like some other guys, and maybe they were military, but it just seemed like with the unit having more guys, better weapons. They had grenades and rifles and all that. Why they didn't just mop the floor with Carrington's goons, I have no idea. And just to see them charge ahead and then get their rifles taken away from them and then get clubbed over the head and then quickly knocked out or shot or wounded. You saw one guy kind of hobbling away after he presumably got shot in the leg or something. I'm just like, really? You guys are supposed to be providing security for, the space, space control, and you can't even keep yourselves safe, let alone say, protect space control. So it was not one of UNIT's better efforts, let me tell you, in my opinion. But
I did want one last comment, Charles, before you move on to the next topic. I do agree that I just recently watched Apollo 13.
Right.
And now I'm going to draw
Tom Hanks.
The Gene, the great based on the true guy, Gene, what's his last name, in the white vest that's doing mission control.
Okay.
By Harris, right? I believe is the actor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ed Harris.
Yeah, Ed Harris, right?
Yeah, he's on Westworld.
Yeah, not quite the same. Our head of space center in this, not quite the kind of control commander presence that he had. Yes, right. I thought.
So you found his management style lacking, is what you're telling me.
Yes. I don't see him going. And, failure is not an option. He'd go, well, and if we fail, well, we tried our best.
Yeah, he almost seemed kind of broken. Now, granted, he had a lot of pressure on him for this launch, and especially he's probably a little stressed out because, hey, 3 astronauts have gone missing, I'm guessing. But, the fact that, he's got General Carrington waltzing in and calling for the doctor's head and then the brigadier's head and everybody and not just shutting him down cold. It seems like he was just completely out of his depth, and maybe he just felt that it wasn't his place to do anything. Maybe that's a British thing. Maybe he felt subservient to them. But you think he would have stood up a little bit more for the security of the center, and also taking more of a lead in finding out what happened to those astronauts than he did. But the Brigadier, I think, is also someone that really quickly also I think he was a little caught in the middle. You had General Carrington, a top military leader, throwing his weight around, throwing his conspiracy theories around, and the Brigadier, because he's the dutiful soldier, he kind of goes along with it a little bit until he ends up getting arrested himself, because after he gets accused of being part of the quote-unquote conspiracy. Apparently the Brigadier is the deep state, you guys, and to use a modern term, and but of course he's not. And but I did like the fact that he got away from Carrington's inept guards and drove away and went off to rescue the doctor and go back to unit headquarters and try to rally whatever troops they had left, because most of them were guarding the space center. So it was good to see him step up, obviously, in that supportive role. And I did like the bit with Unit riding around in Bessie. So you had the Brigadier and one of their transport, like they had no transport, so like, okay, what do we have left? Well,
Yeah, like-
well, we've got Bessie.
Like
And
there
the guy- and then
isn't
I'm sure
a
the Brigadier-
Jeep available,
Right,
Right,
exactly.
there isn't a personal
No.
vehicle available.
They're all
Nothing, all gone. Not an
Not
Uber
a van,
inside.
not a transport. Yeah, nothing. So I'm sure the Brigadier is like, really? All we got is Bessie? Really, guys? And so they all pile into Bessie, almost kind of like a clown car, and they're all driving her off, into the hills and the mud and all that. And I just thought that was kind of cool a little bit. So I just wanted to mention that. All right. Anything else about the brig or unit or anybody? All right. Go ahead.
What Jesse said with when it came to Cornish, as it were, that he could definitely take a few pages from Eugene Kranz's playbook, indeed.
Nice. All right. Or hey, Jesse Jackson's playbook as a leader and motivator of his team. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Topic number 3. I had to do what I did. It was my moral duty. And that, of course, is a quote from General Carrington. So let's talk about General Charles, again, no relation, Carrington. Let's talk about Regan, his little hench guy. We can talk about Wakefield, John Wakefield, the reporter guy, who Carrington tries to draft as part of his propaganda crusade. And let's talk about the ambassadors of death themselves, because are aliens, because they're essentially used as a pawn as part of General Carrington's paranoia about aliens coming to Earth to destroy us all. So, Nick, let's start with you on this one. What are your thoughts about General Carrington and the big conspiracy?
Well, when it came to General Carrington, I think one of the problems of this serial is we tended to get more of the henchmen, i.e. people like Tartaglia and Regan, than, let's say, the puppet masters themselves, which at the end of the day are, to a certain extent, Quinlan and Carrington.
Right.
And this is revealed almost at the end of the serial. And I think some people, and I know that, when it came to reviewing this series, what a lot of folks came out saying was it does seem a little bit muddled at times as to what their end game is. And I suppose that to a certain extent you do kind of wonder, because you think to yourself, are they trying to gain more power? Are they trying to expand their influence? It is a little bit muddled in that sense, but I did like them as puppet masters, because often when it comes to, of course, Doctor Who, for the most part, villains are alien threats or anything like that. You don't really get, shall we say, a Terran threat coming from Earth people. And so I thought this was very interesting, though I feel that General Carrington and also I think Sir James Quinlan could have been fleshed out a little bit more. We almost got more of Regan, I think, as the villain, or as just on screen, than we did Carrington. But I did enjoy the whole puppet master concept for sure.
All right. Yeah. I wasn't quite sure what Quinlan's deal was, but I think Carrington's deal can simply be explained that, hey, he was nuts. And so maybe his plan wasn't all that well thought out. But, Jesse, what's your take on this?
So I think you bring up a really good point, Nick. This probably could have been stronger if you had one villain versus the two, the petty criminal, or would-be boss wanting to use these aliens as basically muscle, right? And that killing machines or to be able to steal, they're going to be his mob. And then, of course, you've got the general, the military guy,
right.
that is lost his mind. I think they could have done a better job of setting that up a little better, to see that he's quite mad,
Yes.
That's what it ends up being, and I think we could have seen a little bit more of that to have a stronger reveal. And I don't know if we got it.
Maybe kind of seeing him crack privately when he was alone and maybe by himself in his office or something.
Yeah.
To see him just how damaged he was.
Or delusional. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if he had talks like, you don't understand. We are doing this to save the world.
Yeah.
There is a force out there that is going to take us apart, and to show his obsession / insanity. I thought it was enough payoff that I'm not going to take a lot of points off of it, but I think if you were scoring this at home, which we hope all our audience is, you certainly could say, well, this is where it could have improved.
Yeah.
It could have been a better villain in that case.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to some extent, I think they did try to develop the insanity of Carrington. They showed him like repeatedly saying, and this is kind of why I chose it for my topic theme, that he kept referring to his moral duty, like he had to do it, and he was adamant about it. He repeats this like 5 times or something throughout this story, and so it's like, I'm the good soldier, they're the threat. I'm here to protect you all. Only I can save you. This is my job. It's my duty to protect you all, and I'm going to do it. And so maybe with it, that military mindset, but then they also added to that by giving the little bit of a backstory that, hey, he was on a previous Mars probe, and he lost his partner, and so basically he's kind of out for revenge a little bit, or at least the losing his partner is what cracked him essentially, and then kind of tipped him over the edge and into insanity. And so therefore now he's not just insane, he's paranoid about this alien threat that he perceives.
Yeah, and I think, Charles, that could have been a better reveal if you had set up better that this guy was a hero,
right,
known, and then that where, let's say, the doctor is revealing that no, they came in peace. This is all misunderstanding. The reason why this has happened is because this criminal guy has taken, and then you see the madness of like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. We have to save the world. So minor nitpicking. I certainly think it was, I think they swung for the fences, to use the baseball metaphor.
Yeah,
they may not have hit it, but I think they were trying to tell and use a pretty grand theme. And so I'm not going to fault them because it doesn't hit all the way. Like I said, I like this story a lot.
Yeah, I think to both of your points, really, that I think part of the problem was you had kind of competing agendas as far as the bad guys went. Like, Carrington, obviously he's like, he's out there and he's like, being paranoid about the alien menace. Meanwhile, Regan is like, well, hey, I can use these ambassador guys to get rich.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of at cross purposes, and maybe this is why their little cabal was destined to fail like it did, because
and I think
because they weren't really focused on a team goal here.
Yeah, and I think if you split them into 2 different stories, where maybe you could have had a 4 episode, of using captured aliens to manipulate and use a crime spree, and then another 4 episodes of a different time where using them and we're having this worrying about these aliens trying to come in peace and we're not agreeing it. And we're definitely doing Monday morning quarterbacking here.
Yeah.
But it's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about Wakefield. I thought it was interesting. Mostly because, hey, interesting, you had Carrington trying to use the media in 1970 to get the word out about his perceived menace, and you had Wakefield more than happy to go along with it, even after everybody's like, dude is nuts, and Wakefield's going, well, his attitude seems to be like, well, he's a good story. kind of like the reporter that we talked about in the Web of Fear a little bit. And he was more than happy to carry that. So anybody have any thoughts about Wakefield?
I did want to say he reminded me for some. I mean, I think he's a terrible newscaster. That's just my opinion. Right. I would not follow that newscaster if he were the newscaster. But I don't know about you guys, but I almost also got the vibe of the newscaster that we get in Aliens in London.
Right. A little bit of one, yeah. And, especially since you had that pig and the spacesuit. So yeah, that's sure. Now, what did everybody make of the reveal that, hey, the ambassadors weren't bad guys after all, and that they're just being manipulated, and they're actually ambassadors for peace that got captured and used for evil purposes? Anybody surprised by that little twist, or no?
I thought it was a nice twist. I did want to say one other thing before we move on.
Yeah.
I always get a kick when, and we're going to be broadcast around the world via the tele-satellites, you know, and I don't know, I'm older than both of you, but when Elvis did Aloha,
yes,
the Hawaii special.
From Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah, and it was broadcast, via satellite around the world.
Yeah.
And that was a huge thing at that time. I did get a kick out of seeing them about to be on, around the world. And it was just, you also didn't have a panel of talking heads that you would have nowadays saying, oh, what do you think this is going to be about? Well, our speculation on me, we've heard, our sources tell us. It was kind of, it's very from another time.
Yeah, I don't want to date Jesse here a little bit, but I think my 80-year-old parents still have Elvis Aloha in Hawaii on original vinyl. Just saying.
I'm caught in a trap and I can't walk out.
Nice. Well played, sir. Well played. All right. I guess it's just me with my suspicious mind, I guess. All right. All right. Anybody have any other thoughts that they want to share about this story before we move on?
Oh, well, when it came to the ambassadors, because I'm actually curious to see what your choice for reverse the polarity will be, Charles, because I got a vibe from these ambassadors of a villain that we get in New Who, which I'm not going to mention because I'm curious to see what your choice is. But what I loved about it is the fact that they are not villainous. And I think it's also a concept that Doctor Who has often brought to its show throughout its history, is that just because it's different, it doesn't mean that it's evil. And we often have that case, maybe the misunderstood alien or creature, and that just because, they're where they are and they have certain powers, they're not necessarily bad or trying to take over the world. And so I thought it was nice that we got that almost homage to a theme that would carry on in the show. And I would have loved to have seen more and find out more about the species and, where they come from and such. But yeah, I really, really loved it. And like I said, I'm very, more than anything, I'm curious to see when it comes to the reverse polarity, when it comes to your choice in that sense.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point.
I think you're going to be a little disappointed with my selection, because I think what you're hinting at, if I'm not mistaken, is Silence in the Library, perhaps?
I got the Vashta Narada vibe. Yeah.
That's what so I went a little different route, but I kind of see where you're coming from with that, and I think probably maybe yours is better than mine. What I've got, so maybe I should have gone with that a little bit. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But I appreciate your faith in me, though. That's appreciated.
Always.
Thank you, kind sir, and sirs, I should say. All right. Any further thoughts about the episode? All right, about the story. All right. So let's move on. Favorite quotes. Anybody got any favorite quotes? Nick, do you want to start us off, if you have any?
I had a couple.
Okay.
The first one was when the encounter between the Doctor and Tartalian, when the tape disappears, and him and Liz have that exchange, and she says to him, "You didn't send it into the future, did you?" He goes, No. That was simply transmigration of object. There's a great deal of difference between that and pure science, you know. Now then, what about decoding this tape? Let me see now. So I love that.
That's great.
And then when the doctor leaves Gray and Carrington stuck to Bessie and he drives off in the low loader and he comes back and the Brigadier's like, how on earth? And the doctor's, I brought the capsule here. And the Brigadier's like, Doctor, thank heavens you're all right. We found the car. Thought they'd got to you. And he goes, didn't you find 2 angry men stuck to my car? Brigadier, no, just the car. The doctor goes, I kind of got that force field strong enough yet. I love that.
Yeah, I'll jump on. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charles.
No, I was just going to say, I love. We didn't talk about the anti-theft device, but that was pretty cool little gimmick on Bessie there, I thought.
Yeah, and that's one of my quotes is when the doctor, after he activates it and they're stuck there, don't worry, it'll switch itself off eventually.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good line.
Yeah, the only other one I had, which is so arrogant of the doctor. My dear man, I have spent more time in space than any astronaut on your staff. Not, I admit, in the rather primitive contraption that you use, but I'll manage. Pure cocky doctor. How can you not love it?
Yeah, I love it. Couple of my quotes. At the beginning of the story where the doctor's kind of tinkering with the TARDIS console. And a little side note, this is the first time we see the TARDIS console out of the TARDIS. So he's showing Liz, and Liz is obviously being skeptical because she still doesn't believe that he has a time machine. Liz, they talk about, the doctor makes Liz disappear briefly in time, and then the doctor disappears, and so Liz is like, "Wow, what happened?" And the doctor replies, "Well, we both got caught in a time warp field, and were projected into the future." And Liz replies, "Into the future?" The doctor says, "Yes, but only by 15 seconds. And Liz goes, "But I haven't been anywhere. You vanished." And the doctor goes, No, you vanished first. I only seem to have vanished because you went to the future, and I wasn't there yet." So I kind of like that. And lastly, an exchange between General Carrington and the doctor, where Carrington says, "You're not surprised to see me?" And the doctor replies, "Not particularly, no." And Carrington says, "I'm surprised to see you, doctor. My instructions were that you were to be killed." And the doctor replies, "Well, somebody disobeyed your instructions, didn't they?"
Nice.
So I kind of liked him being a little defiant there. I thought that was cool. And then, of course, the classic between the Brigadier and Cornish, "I think the general's a bit overwrought." And Cornish replies, "I think he's insane." So, all right. All right. So what's everybody's ratings for this one? Jesse, let's start with you first on this one.
Well, you guys mentioned for the very beginning, and I tried to not talk too much about it because I didn't want to give it away. I give this 8.5 out of 10 white go-go boots.
Nice.
I like this one a lot.
Nice. And respect to the go boots.
Absolutely.
All right. Nick, how about you? What's your rating?
I'm going to give this also 8.5 out of 10. I just wanted to make one quick point. It's not a perfect 10 for one specific reason.
Yeah.
The incidental music provided by Duncan Simpson. As at times, it did not really match the tension or what was happening on screen. It was very 70s, I get that, but to me it sounded like hippie music meets Emmanuel for some very strange reason. So I found it rather off-putting, and took me out of it now and again, but I'm not going to hold it too much against this series. Overall, I very, very much enjoyed it, but not a fan of Duncan Simpson's score.
Yeah, I think one thing that, like, since you brought it up, one scene in particular, I think, was when the Brigadier is kind of driving around that kind of industrial complex at the Space Center. And, where you have all these pipes and whatnot controlling the variant, the M3 variant. And, and there's it's this kind of happy little kind of like 70s, 60s amusement park music. It just seemed like it had zero sense of tension or drama for the serious tone of the story. It didn't really match the tone, in my opinion. So I'm totally with you on that one, Nick. guess what, guys? We're in sync. I give this one 8.5 as well. I'm going to give it 8.5 out of 10 unit soldiers in Bessie's back seat. Although I don't want to know who the half soldier is, but unless it's somebody of diminutive size, possibly shrunken by the master, maybe. But yeah, I think we're in sync on this one. This is a great one. Yeah, it's a little long. It's a 7-parter, but it's a great 70s romp. Great, perfect episode of, I think, the early Jon Pertwee era that I think works so well. All right. So now that Nick has built up this big denouement regarding reverse the polarity, I'm going to get, like I said, I went a little different route with this one. I was tempted to okay, well, you got an astronaut suit, so do I do the impossible astronaut, or as Nick suggested, Silence of the Library? So I decided to go a little different. I went with Oxygen, the 5th episode from Series 10 in 2017, written by Jamie Matheson. And if you remember in this one, this is a 12th Doctor, Bill and Nardole story where the TARDIS ends up following this distress call to a deep space mining station. And when the TARDIS gets jettisoned by the station's computers, our Team TARDIS ends up being forced to wear smart suits, these spacesuits capable of independent operation tied to the station. And apparently they're like the only source of oxygen because, hey, the mining company doesn't provide oxygen inside the station. And so everything's measured in brass. And you find out later that, hey, the mining company is just basically looking to make a quick buck. So they kind of exploit, the suits. And so that to try to, get a profit out of it. And these smart suits end up creating zombies if you wear these suits, and but the Doctor ends up they actually do a spacewalk in this episode, which kind of made me think a little bit of Jon Pertwee going out into space a little bit. That's the kind of vibe I was going for with this one, and ultimately, of course, Bill has to remove her helmet at one point during the story, and the Doctor gives her his, but ends up getting blinded in the process. And even though after they take the revenge on the corporation and cause the station to self-destruct, when they go back to Earth, they find out, well, the Doctor reveals to Nardole privately, doesn't tell Bill, that, hey, he's still blind. And that's the cliffhanger for this one. So that's the kind of vibe I was going for. I hope it wasn't much of a disappointment, but I think with just Jon Pertwee, I get a Capaldi vibe, so I kind of wanted to take something from the Capaldi era, so like a Capaldi story set in space. That's where I was coming from with this one, and I hope you check it out.
Very nice.
All right.
Fantastic. Yes.
All right. So really quickly, I know we still have a lot to talk about, but I just want to mention really quickly for anybody that happened to be a part of the Listen rewatch yesterday, because remember this is May 20th, 2020, and yesterday, May 19th, 2020. Or actually, no, I'm sorry, this was today. Today they had the Listen rewatch, but. Stephen Moffat apparently wrote a poem, and that ended up becoming made into a YouTube video. It's called Listen, based on, inspired by that episode. And they got Jacob Dudman, who was that great narrator who narrated the story, Russell T. Davies' story about Sarah Jane's funeral, if you remember. He narrates this poem and does a really great job. So I recommend checking that out if you weren't able to do so today, and it's worth a listen. And Stephen Moffat does a really nice job with the poetry. I got to give props to him on that one because not all writers can pull that off well.
I have not listened to it yet. I did see that was happening. I will repeat myself each time this comes up. The creative teams behind Doctor Who have just loved going back and sharing stuff. It feels like there are, just like a lot of musicians, and I'm sure you've seen that a lot, Nick,
right,
just have this burning desire to perform. So they're putting out songs, they're broadcasting Facebook Live. My musical hero, Bruce Springsteen, has now had 4 from my home to your home DJ sessions. It's a little bit longer than an hour, where he actually is not playing, he is spinning music. He is picking songs and talking about it and telling stories. And the creative people behind Doctor Who have just like, hey, okay, let's write a poem. Oh, let's do an audio play. Let's write a new short story. And it's just a blessing that we've had.
Yep. And as Nick finally makes his appearance on camera, although obviously you guys can't see him, so he's still a bit of a mystery to everybody.
Yay!
But
I like my order of mystery.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You're very enigmatic, sir.
I try to be.
You're misterioso. So
Yes.
Thank you. Well, very well pronounced too.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right. Now, feedback this week. We got 2 feedbacks because, hey, our regular writers, at least I like to think they're regular writers, Holly Mack and David K. Proctor wrote in once again. So about this time, of course, about the Ambassadors of Death. So do you want me to read David's and then you read Holly's, or vice versa?
That sounds good to me.
All right. So David K. Proctor writes in about the Ambassadors of Death, and he says, 21 March 1970. The moon had just been tread upon by humans the previous year by 2 missions. Before the 5th episode aired, Apollo 13 happened, and we were actively trying to figure out how to rescue 3 astronauts from space. How timely. Not only that, but prior to World War II, Great Britain was the main seat of the power of the Western world. They had been the leaders of what we consider to be the world. They lost a great deal of that power due to debt and the end of colonization. The United States picked up the manual and ran with it until recently. Perhaps it's changing a bit now and tilting toward China. In 1970, the greatest generation and the baby boomers were making Doctor Who. They were the last generation of an all-powerful British Empire and the first of a new world order. What a time to be alive. But of course, it was also the Cold War and the paranoia of the military-industrial complex. This story was ripped right from real life. Normally, I'd make a big deal about pacing, but it was paced like the Cold War. It plodded along with the intrigue and infighting, and everyone focused on possible enemy incursions, not the opportunity of possible partnerships. It took an alien James Bond to win the day. Groovy, baby, real groovy. I give this a 9 out of 10 because they could have done better special effects of rockets. In parentheses, he says, love me some rockets. Well, who doesn't, right? By the way, how expensive in pounds and in resources was 3 rocket launches in a week from a most difficult latitude. Now you know why Quinlan was so, freaking out, because it's like, well, I got to pay for this out of my budget, right? And there's a big savings in fuel launching from near the equator. Exactly. The United Kingdom and more appropriate locals in Africa and the Far East, including islands of the Caribbean. Thank you, David K. Proctor. So a very insightful email from David K. Proctor on that one.
Yes, David, really nicely said.
Well done with the historical context, too.
Yeah, I did love the fact, too, that it was not a splashdown. The capsule didn't, all the U.S. missions always landed because it would be a softer landing.
It was like all SpaceX, we're going to land right there on a target.
Yeah, so that was nice. Holly says, hey, Charles, Jesse, and Nick. That is us.
Yep.
A very interesting story. Yes, a very interesting story. Good to see Briggs and the Liz.
The Brig and Liz.
I love Liz. I love the anti-theft device on Bessie. Really didn't like General Carrington's character all that much. I can understand his anger at losing a fellow astronaut, but there's also needing to keep an open mind as well. Love Team Unit using Bessie to go and rescue the doctor. The ending was all right. Guess I was expecting to see the astronauts return back to base. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly. And she reminded me, I did think the ending was a little weird, where the doctor goes, "Yeah, and I got stuff going in my lab. Bye." Like, what?
But you can also see Capaldi's doctor doing that, couldn't you? Like,
yes,
hey,
you could.
I got things to do, so okay, like I got freed the ambassadors for you. Why don't you just wrap this up for me, and I'm gonna go back to my lab, okay?
Yeah, and just like, here, Liz, you just, it is almost like on every medical show where you see the surgeon goes, "Okay, you can wrap up here. You can close.
Yeah,
I'm moving on."
Yeah, exactly. It's like MASH, where they like Hawkeye or somebody says, "Close for me, nurse," and then
yeah, exactly. Yes.
Like I'm far too important. I got things to do, so I got to go back to the officers' club and have a martini. So
exactly.
All right. So thank you, David, and thank you, Holly, once again for writing in. We always love hearing from you guys. We want to hear from more of you, though. So if you want to be like Holly and David, because if you want to join the Cool Kids Club, write to us at nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg for Southgate Media Group @gmail.com. Or you reach out to us on the Twitter at nextstopsmg on Twitter, or Facebook, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. And Instagram, that I kind of mentioned earlier when I talked about my little cool new Doctor Who mask, because, hey, hashtag masks are cool. You can reach us on Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere podcast. So please check us out there. Nick, where can they find you in this wonderful World Wide Web that we call the interwebs?
Well, we just heard, from Holly, which is a perfect segue because, as you kindly mentioned, Charles, I am one of the co-hosts of the Happiness and Darkness show, which is a superhero movie podcast where we discuss all sorts of superhero movies, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, you name it. You can catch episodes come out every Sunday. You can check us out on Facebook, where we're at Happiness and Darkness. On the Twitter, we're at High Darkness Pod, or on Instagram under Hidden Darkness. And you mentioned Holly, and I said it's a great segue because Holly will be joining us this Sunday to discuss Howard the Duck. So be sure that
ain't about to be plucked.
Exactly. So that's going to be a fun one for sure. And speaking of music, if you guys are into country music, I also do host the Whiskey and Cigarettes Country Music Radio Show, which is aired every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For more information about that, you can go to our website. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. What about you, Jesse?
I love the way he says .com.
I've learned to enunciate as time goes by.
You really hit that hard. I really like that.
You can find me on social media on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Jesse Jackson. Charles and I do two other podcasts that are both kind of on hiatus right now, but if you are doing some catch up and you're checking out Doom Patrol or the Titans, you can actually hear Nick on a couple of the episodes. You can go to Titan Talk and hear us talk about that. Phantom Zone podcast, where we discuss comic book TV shows. We covered The Boys, we covered Watchmen, and Nick joined us when we talked about the big Crisis on Infinite Earth. If you can also hear me at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, on Set Leslie Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast, where I talk to Bruce Springsteen fans from around the world. Nick has been on that episode. Charles keeps telling me he's going to, but we never work out a time.
I've been waiting for you to ask.
I ask every week.
Schedule the time, my man. Say, hey, Charles, you want to join me on such and such day at such and such time? I will be there for you.
All right. That sounds good. And in fact, this week,
this is your show. I'm not going to do the heavy lifting for your show.
We have double episodes this week on Set Leslie Bruce, where we discuss Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road? I have a collection of over 40 people giving the answer, and then the guy who came up with that question originally and I discuss it. So check out both those episodes. Charles, when you're not giving me a hard time and refusing to be on my podcast.
What did I refuse? Come on, you just this is alien propaganda. Sir. Spoilers, by the way, she doesn't get in the car, she goes out for pizza. So hate to break it to you again.
I do have to tell you real quick.
Yes.
A guy said that, yes, she gets in the car and they go to Nebraska and have a killing spree, which is a very good reference to Springsteen's Nebraska album where he wrote songs about the killing spree in Nebraska. So I thought that is the darkest answer to Mary getting in the car.
Pretty much.
So go ahead, Charles.
All right. Well, I don't know if I can top that. So, of course, as for me, you can reach me at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. And my blog at Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're going to talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere. Your Doctor Who, your Torchwood, your Sarah Jane Adventures, all kinds of comic book sci-fi goodness, and news of my other podcasts I do for Southgate Media, including the aforementioned Phantom Zone podcast that I do with Jesse, and Titan Talk, the Titans podcast that I also do with Jesse, and which should be returning shortly next month because, Doom Patrol Season 2 is coming out. So we're going to be reopening up Titan's Tower to talk about that. And we also had Stargirl premiere this week, so I don't know what Jesse wants to do about that, although I kind of enjoyed the pilot. And
yes,
I liked it a lot. I don't know.
Brilliant.
It was really good. I don't know if it's enough to justify a full episode. We might have to go every 2-3 weeks. I don't know. You and I'll talk offline, but I really liked the first episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to have to pay you guys if you don't discuss Stargirl, seriously, because that pilot was amazing.
All right. So I know I opened the Pandora's box on that one. Apologies, everybody. And, of course, my other podcast they do for Southgate Media, including this one, Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast I do with Zan Sprouse, whom you've heard here on Next Stop Everywhere and also on Nik's Happiness and Darkness podcast, I believe. And all kinds of, we obviously talk about Twin Peaks. We talked about David Lynch, and we have a ball doing that. Still working on Twin Peaks The Return as we kind of hit the final 3 episodes of the 2017 Showtime revival of Twin Peaks. Will we talk about that? After that, we'll see. We got plans. And so everybody, please check that out. I would definitely appreciate it. I know Zan would definitely appreciate that. And or tell your friends to check it out. Other than that, next time on Next Stop Everywhere, as we wrap this up finally, in episode 186, we jump ahead to the Tom Baker era, and we talk Terror of the Zygons.
Nice.
And that's a fun one from the Tom Baker era, like I said. And, it also has the Brigadier, so we're kind of almost doing an unofficial Brigadier trilogy here. I don't know how that
Brigadier
went.
month. That was perfect.
It's unofficial Brigadier month. How's that? Sort of. But he was a colonel in one of those. So does that really count? I don't know.
We should do mess up your schedule.
Yes.
We should the following week instead of going to Davison, we should do a Sarah Jane adventure where the Brigadier was there, and so then we would have 4. We would actually do Brigadier month.
Well,
think about it.
There was a Davison story where that featured the Brigadier. It's called Modern Undead. But we already have plans, and we also have a special guest companion lined up.
Okay.
And I don't want to let her down.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. But we should do that sometime.
Right, we should do that sometime. I agree. But the special guest companion for next time, as we talk Terror of the Zygons, John Takis returning to Next Stop Everywhere. It's been far too long since we've had John on this podcast. Thankfully, he expressed an interest in doing this one. So cheers to John, and very happy about this. And, of course, it's always fun to hear him talk about Tom Baker because that's one of his favorite eras. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun as we talk about this one as the Fourth Doctor goes to Scotland to finally face the Loch Ness Monster. So, having been to Loch Ness, I'm looking forward to this. So, and I know my wife Lori might actually watch this one. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Because, hey, it's got, the Loch Ness Monster in it. It's got Scotland, and she's all kinds of obsessed with Scotland right now. So maybe, fingers crossed, she'll watch this one. If not, regardless, we're coming back. Nick, thank you so much. I hope you had fun, sir. We always have a ball talking to you, and thank you so much for talking a Third Doctor. I think this is the first time you got to talk to Third Doctor on Next Stop Everywhere, if I'm not mistaken. So, so I hope you had fun, and Jesse, of course, thank you. And everybody, come on back next time. Episode 186, Terror of the Zygons, John Takis. I don't have to say any more, do I? Because I think that's enough right there to sell it. So we'll see you next time right here, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Ciao.